it's Shad's back again with another how-to vlogette kind of thing. Essentially, for those of you who don't know, my job entails doing a lot of Windows 7 installs. Essentially, I work in an IT department, and Windows 7 is our operating system of choice for various reasons. Now, currently, I'm running this. What you're seeing here is a virtual machine, which is run from my normal desktop. This is like a I run sort of test operating systems, and I can test out functionality without actually using a physical machine. And if anything goes wrong, I can just wipe the machine and start again without causing any issues to my main operating system and my main PC. Those of you who don't know, I am currently running Windows 10 on my desktop, Windows 10 Pro, and part of Windows Professional since since Windows 8 is a program called Hyper-V, and this is what Hyper-V is. It's a virtual machine and enables me. So I basically spun up a Windows 7 Home Premium machine because it's the only license that I've got, and I've got it all set up, and I've just installed the operating system. So I'm just going to log on. There we go. So we'll get that running, and while that's running, I'll just give you a bit of a blurb of what I've basically done. So installed my network and everything else. I had some technical problems. I've already recorded this once. Had some technical problems with the networking, the virtual switch that I set up, but I've now got that sorted. So this is a fresh installation of Windows 7, and all I've done is updated to Internet Explorer 10. Was it 10 or 11? Let me just have a look. Probably 10. Essentially, Windows 7 Service Pack 1 comes with Internet Explorer 8. And you need to update Internet Explorer. It's to 11. Excellent. Okay, so we can use recommended settings. That's fine. Cool. I'm just going to change this because this is what I do every time. There we go. Right, so essentially that means that it just opens the home page faster because it's a quicker loading page. So all I've done literally is just updated to Internet Explorer 11, and that is basically always recommended because anything that you download, you'll have fewer problems essentially when you download stuff. So the first thing you need to do, there are some prerequisites that you'll need to download first of all before you can install what is the new Microsoft update, and I'll give you a quick brief rundown. Essentially what happens, you install Internet Explorer, let's start again. You install Windows 7 Professional or Home or whatever it is, and with Service Pack 1, which was the last service pack that Microsoft released, which is ancient, and there's a load of updates to take you up to current day, all the security patches, etc, etc. Now, in December of 2015, Microsoft made some changes to the Windows update process, which meant that you had to update the Windows updater. Follow me so far? Otherwise, essentially, when you went to here and you go all programs, Windows Update, that will basically sit there and hang it forever and ever and ever, and it will never update. And you can leave it for days and days and days, and it just never happens. So you have to download an update so that Windows Update it is updated, and it will download the things. And that still takes forever. I mean, it was taking me, I usually do 2 or 3 machines at the same time, and it usually takes around about 4 hours for each of those machines to download all the Windows 7 updates. So Microsoft have now released what they call the Windows 7 Service Pack 1 Convenience Rollup Update. And you have to jump through a few hoops to be able to download that. But what that is basically, rather than a 1.2 gig download of various updates that you have to get and then restart and then get and then restart and so on and so forth, there is a 316 meg download which has all the core Windows 7 security updates. It doesn't give you any updates for Internet Explorer and so on and so forth, so you will still have to do a certain amount of updates depending on what version of Internet Explorer you use and so on and so forth. But it does mean that it's all sorted and up to date pretty quick. And it's a single download, so you can download that once, store it on a server, and then pull that file off, dump it on the desktop, install it from each machine, and it just basically saves you around about 3 hours per machine when you're setting up multiple machines. And I will just say that the 316 meg update that I'm stating is actually for Windows 7 32-bit. The 64-bit version of Windows 7 is 476 meg, I believe, and also for Windows Server 2008 R2. That is also the same size update, 476 meg. So without any further ado, let's go to the page that we need to go to get the first of the hoops that we need to jump through. Search support.microsoft.com/en-us/kb/302-369. Bam. Which doesn't exist apparently. 302-0369, that's why. Boop. There we go. So this is the April 2015 servicing stack update for Windows 7 and Server 2008 R2. So you can just pretty much go down and find your version. So if you're using Server 2008 R2 64-bit, you do that one. If you're using Windows 7 64-bit, you do that one. This is a 32-bit version of Windows. If you want to find out what version of Windows you're running, you can click on the Start button, right-click Computer, click on Properties, and bam, there you go. It gives you your version of your operating system just here. So it's Windows 7 Home Premium Service Pack 1, and it's a 32-bit operating system. That's the only valid license key that I've got. So yeah. So I'm going to go for the 32-bit, which is all supported x86 based Windows 7. So we'll download the package. Boom. Click on download, and we'll save it. And that by default will save into the download folder. So if you click on here and you go to downloads, there's our first hoop that we've jumped through. Okay, and well, that's pretty much it. That's the first step. So we might as well get on and do that now. But there is another hoop that you have to jump through. Before you install this, you'll need to open, click on the Start button, get into here and type services.msc, hit enter, and you'll see the services window will open up. Scroll down to the bottom, find Windows Update, right click it, and click Stop. And then you can minimize that and then double click this bad boy and it'll install. If you don't click that, it won't actually install because the Windows update service will already be running and it won't actually install this. So we just go through this and I'll just wait until it's gone through the installation and I'll be back in just a second. Okay, and we're back and we have installed KB3020369. It's all done. So our next installation is we need to just change the KB to 3156417. So 3156417. No, not 33. We didn't need that extra 3. 3156417, which is the May 2016 update roll-up for Windows 7 Service Pack 1 and Windows Server 2008. So again, we can download this bad boy. Again, select your version. So obviously I'm running a 32-bit, so I will choose to download this package here. And there we go. And we shall save it. Now, obviously you can save these in advance and save them all into one folder if you so wish, which is what I did at work. but just for the sake of doing each step, here we go with this one. Now, once again, you need to go into services and you need to stop the Windows Update service again, because it will automatically start itself once you install that update there. So we can minimize that again, and then we can bam, there we go, and we'll click yes. Now this one will actually require a restart, just to let you know. So we shall probably have to cut after installing this and come back to the restart here. Let's see. Installing. So slow. There we go. Almost there. Slow. There we go. You must restart. Okay, so we're going to restart now. And we'll force a restart because there's nothing on there that I really want to worry about. And I will... Oh, it's going relatively quickly. Nope, I'm going to cut here. And I'll be back when it's finished. And we're back to the desktop again. See you in a sec. And we're back after installing the second prerequisite. So now it is time for the third prerequisite. Now this one is a little bit more tricky. For some reason, I don't know why, some PCs have issues with installing the next part. So the safest and quickest and easiest way of doing it without having to mess around is click on the start, click on all programs, right click Internet Explorer and run it as an administrator. Okay, so once you've done this, you'll need to go to support.microsoft.com/en/us/kb/312, sorry, I can't talk, 5574. And this will take you to the convenience rollup update. This is the final step. If you scroll down to around about halfway down the page, it says to get the package, go to Microsoft Update Catalog. So if you click on there, this is where the running as administrator helps. So if you click on install and then install again, it'll run that little ActiveX control and you'll be ready to download these updates. So again, this is broken down into Windows 7 32-bit, Windows Server 2008 64-bit edition, that's only available in 64-bit, and Windows 7 64-bit. So obviously select the one that you wish to use, or the one that you are using. Again, I'm using 32-bit, so the update for Windows 7, and I'm going to click Add, and then View Basket. It's like shopping from Microsoft, and it doesn't cost you anything. And then you just hit download, and it'll download that file. You select a location, so I'm going to go into Setup, Downloads, and then Continue, and it'll download that. Shouldn't take too long. Well, it depends on your internet connection. Obviously, if your internet connection is beast mode, it'll go a lot quicker than mine. Sadly, mine is obviously being used by other people as well, although it's still pretty quick. I mean, I'm getting 100 meg down, so it's pretty quick. But there's people streaming and all that sort of stuff in the house, so it will take a little bit of a time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop here, and once it's finished, I will show you the installation process. See you in a moment. And we're back with the download complete, so we can click on close, or we can close Internet Explorer. And once again, we have to do the whole services.msc. And stop the Windows Update process or service. So Windows Update, right click, stop please. There we go. So then we can go back to our downloads folder, and we can double click this bad boy and get this installed. May take a little while. There we go. You can hit yes, and it'll start installing this. Now this will take a long time. There's 300 and some odd meg of updates to install, and that's been compressed as well, so when it's expanded it's going to be considerably more than that. Microsoft recommend that you have at least 4 gig of web space. You don't need web space. At least 4 gig of disk space left for it to expand. It does a cleanup afterwards, so in total it probably takes up around about 2 gig for the entire package. And once you're done, then you could just run Windows Update as normal. You'll have to restart after this. We'll come back to this when it's finished installing, because it will take a long time. And we'll come back to it after the restart, and I'll show you the Windows Update sort of completion process, as it were, and then you'll be good to go. So join me when I've finished. See you in a bit. Okay, so the installation is now complete and we are left with nothing more to do than restart our machine. So we're going to let that restart. It shouldn't take too long to install these bits and pieces. If I need to cut, I will do, but it seems to be ticking along at a reasonable pace. So in the meantime, I'll just blather on and talk about pointless rubbish until such time as it's finished completing. So yep, that's pretty much the installation complete. Once it restarts, you will have to do your standard Windows update, but it will be a lot quicker to complete the rest of the updates, which will be things like the Internet Explorer security updates, what's the .NET, the Microsoft .NET 4.2 or 4.5 or whatever it is, updates, which are huge, and to be honest, you don't really need to do unless you're using any software that needs the .NET, and a couple of other bits and pieces. But the general meat and potatoes of the Windows updates will be sorted there, so they'll be there and ready for you to go. So it'll just be a case of just tidying up by running a quick Windows update, and you know, it'll get your graphics update drivers and all that, driver updates and all that sort of stuff, sound driver updates and so on and so forth. It'll be installed as well with the final sort of phase of updates. This is going to take a lot longer than I expected. So essentially I'm going to leave it there, and I will be back to talk over the final phases of, or the final phase as it were, of completing this update when this is finished. See you in a moment. Okay, so the restart is done. Just log into my machine, and we're pretty much ready to just do the standard Windows update. So we'll go to Start All Programs. Oops, double clicked that, didn't mean to do that. Windows Update. So there we go. So as you can see, it's never actually checked for updates, even though we've installed updates, and we can look at the update history, and there's our knowledge bases. So that's the only Windows updates that we've actually done. And that's pretty much it. So we didn't, you know, those it's classed as important, so we're already sorted. So you can effectively just hit the check for updates button, and it'll then go off and do its thing and find all the final bits and pieces and all the final updates for this operating system. One thing to mention is this will still take a little bit of time, but it certainly won't take the 4 or 5 hours that it would normally take to do the whole thing from start to finish just by doing it with this method. Additionally, if you don't do if you don't decide to follow this one and you just go straight into Windows as soon as you've installed it, and you go straight to Control Panel, Windows Update, then it will get this little process here will never stop unless you download the Windows Update updater. So it'll be worth, if you're not going to follow this guide, at least getting into Internet Explorer, and I'm just trying to remember, it's probably just worth googling it, to be honest. So update for Windows Updater. bosh, Windows, new operating system from Microsoft. It's Microsoft Windows. So yeah, there's a little KB there, 949104, which gives you the latest Windows Update agent, which will then, you know, mean that you'll be able to just go straight into the whole Windows Update thing from the programs file, and it will actually download them. But it will still take you about 2 or 3 hours to download them all. This will actually be a lot quicker. I'm going to leave it there because you don't need to really worry about seeing me sort of checking all the updates and installing all the latest updates. I'm going to stop it here and scrub this virtual machine anyway, because I don't need it, because I don't use Windows 7 apart from at work. So thanks for watching me. If you've got any tips, tricks or comments, or if you've got any questions regarding this process, please leave them in the comment section below. There will be a little addendum after this that I'm going to add, which is how I set up a machine on Hyper-V. That'll be a little end of how-to, as it were. So if you want to stick around and see how to sort of set up a virtual machine on Hyper-V, then please stick around. Otherwise, tricks, comments in the comment section down below. Hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't done so already, and I'll see you in the next video, whether it be a tech top tip even, or a gaming video, or even a vlog. I'll see you later. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Hello, and thanks for sticking around to see this little Hyper-V tutorial, as it were. I figured that some people were going to be asking me how I actually ran a virtual machine on my computer without sort of downloading additional software, etc, etc. Essentially, as far as I recall, Windows 8 onwards has a feature in part of the professional version of the software called Hyper-V. And to activate it, you'll need to go to Programs and Features, which is Control Panel, Programs and Features, and then essentially you just need to, if you click on the Turn Windows Features on or off, you will get, where is it? I'll drag it across. There we are. You'll get this little window pop up. So you just need to, if you expand that, you can install all the sections, or not all the sections, or some of the sections, or whatever. I just hit that, and then it essentially installs everything that I need to. So as it says here, to turn a feature on or off, clear its checkbox. A filled box means only part of the feature is turned on. So as you can see here, these aren't installed fully, and this isn't installed fully. So I've not got ASP.NET, etc. But I did install Hyper-V, and that is pretty much how it goes. So from there, that'll bring you, when you start Hyper-V, you'll be brought to this screen here. Now obviously it won't have anything in it, so what you'll need to do is you'll need to go to Action, New, Virtual Machine, and you'll have the virtual machine wizard. Now this is pretty straightforward. You just, you know, follow the steps through. So before you begin, asks you what you want to do, you know, is that you can click finish to create the machine, etc. Next to create a machine with custom configuration. So you can just go bosh and then configure it later, or you can configure it as you go on. I pretty much always do it as I go on, so I just tend to go next, and we'll call it tutorial machine, and then it asks you where you want to store the virtual machine in. So the virtual machine is essentially it's stored as a file on a disk, so it's always worth making sure that you've got plenty of disk space. Now my C drive doesn't actually have a huge amount of space. I'll show you now. Let me just show you. If I bring this in, computer, this PC, there we go. So as you can see, if I bring this in here and expand, I'll bring that down, you can see that the C drive is almost full. That's because it's an SSD, it's only 120 gig, and I just keep my operating system on it. I don't put anything else on there. Everything else is additional drives. Now my YouTube drive is the most empty because that's the 500 gig drive that I just store all my thumbnails and stuff like that on. I don't store videos or anything else on it. As you can see, Programs is getting a little bit close, so I might have to buy an additional drive. I'm probably going to end up buying a 2 terabyte drive and popping that in and swapping all that across. But anyway, that's by the by. So I'm going to change it, and I'm going to go to Browse, and I shall go to Y, and I've got Hyper-V and we'll just call it new folder tutorial Bosch. So there we go. We'll select that. Ooh, and boink. There we go. So it's in Hyper-V tutorial. And what generation? Well, if we were wanting to run 32-bit operation or software, like I had to with my Windows virtual machine, because I only had a 32-bit operating system disk, then you'll need to go for generation 1, because that does both. If you go for generation 2, it's only for EUFI-based firmware, etc., and 64-bit operating systems. You can't change its generation once you've created it, as it states here. So I'm going to go for the generation 1, which is what I did earlier anyway. Hit that. And you need to give it some RAM, which, bear in mind, it will take some of your system RAM. Now I've got 16 gig of RAM on here, so I'm quite happy to give it 4096. I'll give it 4 gig of RAM. And dynamic memory basically means that if you want to, you can assign it more RAM after you've started it up, and it will automatically add more RAM, or it'll just use, essentially you can allocate 4 gig, but it'll only use 2 until it needs to use 3, and then it'll add another gig, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to give it 4 gig because, hey, I can still survive quite happily with the rest. Now configure networking, we're going to do that a little bit later on, so I'll just leave it as not connected and click next, and then connect virtual hard disk. So essentially we need a bit of hard drive space to give it, so we're going to give it 127 gig again, which is on my Y drive, so that will be a virtual disk that it'll use. So the VHDX is just one big file, and the machine and the hard drive and everything is all in this one big file. Or I could use an existing hard disk if I so wanted. There you go, on the C drive, but I don't want to do that because that would fill up my C drive. So we'll click next, and the installation operations, you can either install from an operating system, install an operating system later, or you can install from a bootable DVD-ROM, which I did, or if you've got an ISO image, you can locate the image of that if you so wish. I don't think I have any ISOs. No, I don't have any ISOs, so we're going to leave that as D. Or you can, if you've got a floppy disk, you could do that as well, but that isn't going to happen. So we're going to do it from D, and then go next, and then finish, because we're good to go. So it's creating another drive, another machine. So we've got the tutorial machine, and we can turn it on if we so wish. But before we do that, we can create a virtual network if we so wish. So what we need to do is go over here to Virtual Switch Manager, and you can create a new one, which is pretty much what I did with the Virtual Switch 1 here. So you can have it as an external, which means you can access the internet through that switch as well. So your host machine, your guest machine as it were, as in my tutorial machine, will be able to access the internet through my existing network on my computer, which is always handy. You can have it as internal only, so it will essentially, you'll be able to it will be like a local area network with no internet access. Or you can have it private, that only virtual machines on this computer can connect to. So you could create sort of 3 or 4 machines, and they could share the network and so on and so forth, but without being able to access the same internet or network resources that your host machine has, if that makes any sense. So I pretty much set up vSwitch 1 as my external access to the internet, so that I could download the updates for the Windows 7 tutorial that I did, and that's just using my standard gigabit Ethernet network controller. I've also got a wireless adapter as well, which I could have set up as that, but I've actually turned my wireless adapter off at the moment, so because I tend to use wired rather than wireless, and it's just a resource that I don't need running. And if you allow management operating system to share this network adapter, that basically means that the software that's running, or the operating system that's running Hyper-V, and the computer that you're setting up as a virtual machine share the same network adapter. So the data for both machines is going through that network adapter. and you can set up a VLAN ID if you so wish, but I didn't bother about doing that. And that's pretty much it. So then when you go into the tutorial machine and you start it up, you can double click that and it'll pop it up. Come on, there we go, tutorial machine, and here we go. It's busy loading up Windows files because it's found it has media with a Windows installation disk. And bam, there we go. So it'll start into the Windows installation as you would if you were installing Windows on any other computer. Here we are. Slowly, slowly, there we go. And there's the install Windows setup. So you just go through the standard thing, so English, and obviously I'm in the United Kingdom, so I would put it as not United States. I can't click, there we go. And then next, and install now, and then it'll take you to the setup page where you select the disk where you want to install the software and so on and so forth. And that's pretty much it. It's essentially the same as using a normal machine, but there's no physical machine there. So you go through the whole thing. I'm not going to do this because if I install this on another virtual machine, I'm actually breaking the law because it's an OEM license and it's only allowed to go on one machine at any one time. So I'm not going to continue this. I'm going to call it there. And then you can just file or action, sorry, and you can either shut it down or turn it off. I don't need to save the data on this, so I'll just turn it off, and it'll say, oh, you know, it's like pretty much like pushing and holding the power button. I don't care because I don't need it. So that's that. That's pretty much the end of the tutorial. If you've got any questions or you've got any tips, tricks or comments, please do pop them in the comment section down below. There are available other software bits and pieces for running virtual machines. It's just worth, you know, maybe mentioning that you can get other things other than Hyper-V. But as this comes with the professional version of Windows anyway, I figured that I would use this because I do actually have a server running on here as well, which is basically my test server because I'm studying for my MCSE and MCSA certificates. So this is pretty much my messing around and learning stuff server. So there you go. Excellent. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Take it easy. Bye for now.